Today, we will set out to try to become the greatest biathlon athlete out there. We will use our vacs, we will use our coaches, we will use the wind's direction. We will try to aim the best we can to get around this track before your fellow players and become the greatest athlete out there. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up this game and how to play it. Now, what I have here in front of me is just a prototype. So by the time you actually get the game in front of you, well, some things might have changed. But it is a well-made prototype and it pretty much looks done to me. But it will give you a great idea on how the finished version will look. So let's just have a look at this. To start with, we need to decide which side of this board we would like to play. There will also be one long track and one short track. And we should also agree on which one we would like to play. If this is your first game, Bad Wolfsheim is the one that is recommended. Next, we need to mount the shooting barrier around the shooting range. We need to put the cloud token on the wind still icon next to the shooting range. We roll all the 5 die into the shooting range. Next, we need to choose a player color. And the color you choose actually have a little function that I will show you in a bit. We need to take 3 Vax cubes in the color that we have chosen. We need to take our little heart here and put at 0 on the pulse meter. And we also need to take 3 bullets. And then we get to choose our athletes. Now, depending on which color you just chose, you get to pick in different orders. For example, whoever picked color red will get to choose first. Whoever picked color black will get to choose second. And if you chose yellow, well, then you get to choose third. And so on. This is important because the different athletes will have different stats on their accuracy track. And next, we need to shuffle the motivation deck and place it on its designated area. Draw the top 2 cards and place them out next to the deck. And once we have received all of these pieces, we need to take the 9 cards belonging to our athlete. Then we need to draw one at random and place it to the left of our player area. Now, the number in the left top corner of your card is quite important, because this number will be your starting initiative. This means that the player with the highest initiative places their athlete behind the start line first. And then we continue with the second highest initiative, and so on until all athletes have been placed. That was the setup of the game, and we're ready to start playing. Now, the game itself is kind of played out during 2 different phases. The first phase where all the players goes at once, and the second phase where we will be going player by player, according to the initiative order. So the first step here is where all players need to select one card from their hand that they would like to play in front of them. And we don't really reveal them just yet. Once all players have chosen their card, well, then we reveal the card and place it out beneath our player area. If you don't have any cards on your hand, well, then you can take the cards that you have previously played, but not the ones from the discard pile. Now, if you don't have any cards to play, you're out of the game, my friend. So you need to take care of your cards. 4 of the cards that you have on your hand are the same for all players, while 5 of the cards that you have on your hand is unique for your character. Before we move on, let's just look at these cards and what they actually mean. Well, up here we have an initiative, like I showed you before. But here is just a cube, right? Well, a single one here means a single die. Represent the numbers showing on the die of that color out on the shooting range. There can be 2 die symbols on the card, then it would mean that it has twice the value of that die. Over here we have the name of the card, and down here we have the action box. This contains details on how far you can move up here, but this is affected of your pulse. In this case here, it won't be affected as there is not a number next to the heart, but there can be. And sometimes there will also be a wind symbol here, like this card here, for example. Here we can see that we have 2 more pulse and a wind symbol. This means if you can manipulate the wind. But if there is no wind symbol, well, then you can't manipulate the wind. And if it has an icy action box down here, meaning it has ice as a background, your card is permanently discarded after you have completed the actions in this box. Next we need to decide which player gets to act first, and we will do that by, you guessed it, looking at the initiatives. The player with the highest initiative goes first, and then we go on to the one that has the lower value and so on until all players have acted out their actions. But what can you actually do during your turn? And how? Well, let's look at that. So let's say that it's Sweden's turn to move out on the track. And I might be biased, but damn it, aren't Sweden good? Now, never mind. We need to look at our card to see first how many steps we can move. And as we can see here, we have 3 different colors: black, yellow, and green. Now, green is not marked as much on this card because, well, it doesn't have a number above it. And the numbers above the colors represents the amount of steps that you can move on the different spaces out on the board. So for example, here, our Swedish little hero have 2 above the black, meaning that she can move 2 steps on black fields. But she can actually also use these 2 steps on yellow and green, as this is an uphill movement, and it takes more power than doing the other 2 movements. So she could move 2 steps on the green and yellow as well. Now, the next one she has is 5 on yellow. This means that she could move 5 steps on yellow spots, but also on green spots. But she cannot use the 5 movement points on the black spots out on the board, as yellow is not as powerful move as going uphill. The yellow ones here are simply plain ground and does not take as much power as going uphill, which is why she can only use them on yellow and green. So in this case here, for example, our Swedish hero used 2 yellow ones to move on the green and then the yellow. Now she would need to use the black 2 steps to move on the black and then the yellow again. Now, she still have 3 yellow movements left. Remember? 1, 2, 2 black, and now the last 3 yellow movements. And you can use these in whatever order you prefer. Whenever you move out on the board, sooner or later you will catch up to another skier. Now, you are allowed to pass through them, but you need to end your movement on an empty spot. Whenever you finish your movement, you need to be placed facing the next square out on the board, because the direction that you have at the end of your movement might be affected by the wind further on. Also, some of these tracks have 2 spots next to each other, meaning that you can actually stand side by another player. Whenever you pass the starting line, you have a choice, because you need to take a card up to your hand. Either you can take the top card from the face down deck, or you can take one of the 2 faced up cards on the tracks. If you choose to take one of the faced up cards, well, you need to refill with a new card right away. Whenever your character comes into the shooting lane space, well, it's time for you to take aim. And that's how you move. It's not that complicated. It might look a little bit complicated to figure out the numbers on your little card here, but it's not. It will become second nature after just 1 round. Now, once you have finished your movement, you need to adjust your pulse. Because once we move, well, our pulse will go up or down. And there's 3 different things that will affect your pulse. If we have any pulse cost on our card, remember, but also if we are drafting out on this board itself, and also the wind's direction. So we first need to look at our card. And here we can see that we actually get a -2, because you can also get lower and higher. Now, if we have a -2 here, well, then we need to move our heart down 2 steps. But then we also need to see if we are drafting. But what is drafting? Well, if you end your movement right behind another player, you are drafting, meaning that they are taking up most of the wind coming straight at you, blocking the wind from you and making your life a little bit easier. And if you are drafting, you get a -1 pulse. But we also need to check the wind. Because if the wind is blowing straight at us, meaning that we have headwind, we will need to increase our pulse by 1. But this will only affect you if you are not behind another player. If you are behind another player, well, you won't be affected by headwind. But you can of course also have tailwind. And if you have the wind in your back, then you would actually reduce your pulse by 1. Speaking of the wind, if you have the wind symbol on your card, you can actually change direction of the wind. This means that you simply take the cloud from wherever it is and place it where you want it to be. So what happens when you're at the shooting range? Well, when you're at the shooting range, you have 2 options. You can choose to either wait and lower your pulse, or shoot. If you shoot, you need to roll all the die that are in the shooting range. And then you need to check your accuracy. Because depending on what your pulse is, you will have a certain accuracy. In this case here, the heart is beneath number 4. This means that you need 4 or more to be able to hit your target. But if we would have been in this row over here, we would have 5. And all the way over here, we would need to hit 3 or more. Once we know our accuracy and we know if we have managed to hit anything, we also need to check the wind. Because if there is any crosswind, we need to reduce our hits by 1, down to a minimum of 0. But if the cloud is on wind still here, we actually increase our number of hits by 1, up to a maximum of 5. Now, once we know how many hits we have, we need to take that number and replace this symbol. And in this case here, the symbol shows 2 icons for number of hits, meaning that the player can move 6 steps, 2 times 3 hits. Unlike real life, there are no punishments if you don't manage to hit anything. There are only rewards here. If you hit, then you get to move twice that amount of steps. If you don't manage to hit, you simply take your little figure and you put them out on the track again. Now, if you are in a bad position and you really want to make a little bit better shot, you can always use your bullets, because 1 bullet will increase your hit value by 1. So one thing I haven't spoken about yet is your wax, because you can use this wax to actually benefit your gameplay. The green wax, for example, will give you an extra downhill speed, while the black wax will give you an extra uphill speed. You can use the blue wax here to reduce your pulse by 1, and you can also use the white wax to change the direction of the wind. So the wax here is quite important in your gameplay. Out on the tracks, we can also find these coaches. Depending on which coach you end up on, you will get different benefits. You could get wax, you could get bullets, and in this case, yellow wax. But you need to end your movement on this spot. These are the only things you can get as extra movement. It's just a result of using wax. And the wax needs to be used as soon as possible, either this turn or the next, depending on which type. The last thing you need to do during your turn is to get rid of the card that you have in front of you. If it had an icy background, you need to remove it from this game, meaning that you cannot use it in future turns. But if it has a snowy background like this one here, well, you will actually be able to get it up on your hand in future turns. And you can actually pay a bullet to pick up all your undiscarded cards, even if you don't have an empty hand. And remember, once you cannot take up any cards on your hand, meaning that all your cards are gone, well, you need to leave the game. And that's the way the game goes on for 3 laps. Whoever managed to cross the finish line first during the 3rd lap is the ultimate winner of Biathlon Blast. If you're into sports games, competitive games, well, I think that this one might just be for you. Because here you have an easy to learn game, but it's quite hard to master. And you really need to keep a track on the track to know which card you are going to play. Because depending on how the tracks looks in front of you, well, you need to make sure that you have the right card to be able to play it. Because if you don't, well, you will not make that much progress, my friend. And yes, you have a little luck moment here with the die where you roll them and hopefully you get the right amount. But it's also up to you to manage your accuracy, your pulse, to make sure that once you get to the shooting range, you have that pulse you want to have, so you have a better chance of actually hitting your targets. There you go, my friend, that was Biathlon Blast, which really is a blast. This game is a lot of fun. It's a fast game, it's an easy game, it's a hard game to win, it's a competitive game, and if you want to know more about it, well, check out the links down in the description. This one will be going to crowdfunding in early 2025, so be sure to check that out if you want to know more. If you like whatever I'm doing here, well, give me a thumbs up, throw in a comment there for me, but most importantly, my friend, please remember to keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace out.